The forbidden sector, the galactic map, showed it clearly, a perfect sphere of empty space where the human territories once thrived. For 80 years, that region had been marked with warning beacons in 17 different languages. The message was always the same: quarantine zone, entry forbidden, species unknown. Captain Vex of the Zephyrian Grand Fleet studied the holographic display with his compound eyes, each facet catching the blue light differently. His chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the bridge lights as he gestured with one of his 4 arms toward the mysterious sector. "Council members," he addressed the assembled leaders through the quantum communicator, "we cannot ignore this anomaly any longer. 80 years of silence from an entire civilization is unprecedented. The Zephyrian species had risen to prominence through careful observation and methodical expansion. Their insectoid forms housed brilliant minds capable of processing multiple data streams simultaneously. They had cataloged every known species in their quadrant of the galaxy. Yet humans remained an enigma. Dr. Kira Wass, the fleet's lead xenobiologist, stepped forward. Her smaller frame and duller coloration marked her as a scholar caste, but her expertise was unquestioned. "Captain, our deep space scans show that human infrastructure remains intact. Cities still generate power signatures. Orbital stations maintain perfect orbits. Yet no communication has emerged from their space since the Great Silence began." Young Navigator Zek, barely past his 3rd molting, buzzed his wings nervously. "Sir, what if they simply left, abandoned their territory for deeper space?" "Captain." X's mandibles clicked a sign of dismissal among his kind. "Impossible. Humans were notorious for their attachment to worlds they colonized. They terraformed hostile planets and fought wars over resource-poor asteroids. They don't abandon anything." The Council's voice crackled through the communicator. "Captain X, you have authorization to lead a reconnaissance fleet into human space. Determine the fate of the human species and assess any potential threat to galactic stability." 3 days later, the Zephyrian fleet crossed into human territory. 5 ships, each a masterpiece of organic engineering, their hulls grown rather than built, equipped with the most advanced sensors the Zephyrian science caste could develop. The first system they entered was designated Sol 7 in human records once, a thriving agricultural world with a population of 50 million. As they approached the planet, Dr. Voss's instruments began providing impossible readings. "Captain," she reported, her antennae twitching with confusion, "the planetary biosignatures are perfect. Optimal oxygen levels, thriving plant life, stable weather patterns. But there are no humans." The orbital platforms hung in space like silent monuments, massive structures that could house millions, their lights still blinking in regular patterns, their automated systems maintaining perfect function. Yet sensor sweeps revealed no life signs. Captain Vex ordered landing parties to investigate. The away teams returned with footage that disturbed even the most analytical Zephyrian minds. Human cities stood pristine and untouched. Meals sat on tables as if their owners had just stepped away. Personal belongings remained neatly arranged in homes. Vehicles waited in perfect rows along empty streets. "It's as if they all simply vanished at the same moment," reported Commander X, leader of the first landing team. "No signs of struggle, no evidence of evacuation. They were just gone." Navigator Zek had been monitoring communication frequencies during the investigation. His discovery chilled the entire crew. "Captain, I'm detecting something unusual. There are signals coming from this system, but they're not originating from any structure we can identify." "What kind of signals?" Captain Nex demanded. "They're watching us. The signals follow our movements. When we scan a building, the signals intensify near that location. When we move to a new area, they move too. It's like we're being observed by something we can't see." Dr. Voss examined the data with growing unease. "These signals don't match any known technology. They're not electromagnetic, not quantum-based, not even using conventional transmission methods. They seem to exist in a state we don't understand. The fleet moved deeper into human space, visiting system after system. The pattern repeated everywhere. Perfect preservation, no human life, and those mysterious watching signals that seemed to follow their every move. On the fourth day, they encountered their first direct sign that something was actively aware of their presence. Navigator Zek was performing routine scans when his instruments registered an impossible reading. "Captain," he called out, his voice tight with fear. "Something just scanned us back." "Explain." "When I directed our sensors toward the third planet. In this system, something from the planet directed sensors back at our ship. The same frequency, the same intensity, like a perfect mirror of our own scan." Captain Vex felt the familiar tingle of danger that had kept him alive through countless military campaigns. All ships raise defensive fields. Prepare for potential contact. But the contact came in a way none of them expected. The main viewing screen flickered and displayed an image that shouldn't have been possible. It showed their own bridge, their own crew, but from an angle no camera could achieve. The image was being transmitted from inside their ship, yet no scanning equipment could detect the source. Dr. Voss stared at the impossible display. "Captain, this is being broadcast directly into our systems. Whatever is doing this has somehow interfaced with our technology without any physical connection." The image on the screen shifted, showing each ship in their fleet from perspectives that seemed to be everywhere at once. Then text appeared written in perfect Zephyrian script. "You seek the humans. We are what they became." Captain Vex's exoskeleton prickled with alarm. Response protocols. Attempt communication. But before anyone could respond, the signals changed. What had been passive observation became active interference. Navigation systems began reporting conflicting data. Weapon systems cycled between armed and disarmed states without command input. Life support systems fluctuated, though never enough to cause actual danger. "They're not trying to harm us," Dr. Voss realized. "They're demonstrating capability, showing us they could disable our ships if they chose to." Navigator Zek's instruments detected massive energy buildups throughout the system. Not from any visible source, but from the space between objects, as if the vacuum itself was generating power. "Captain," he reported, "I'm reading energy signatures that dwarf our entire fleet's output, but there's nothing there. Empty space is somehow containing more power than our largest reactors." The text on their screen changed. "Your species thinks in matter and energy. You cannot perceive what we have become. But you can choose to understand." Captain Vex made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his days. Send a message back. Tell them we want to understand. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every screen on every ship in the fleet displayed the same image. A human face, but not quite human. The features shifted and flowed like liquid, sometimes appearing as one individual, sometimes as thousands superimposed on each other. "We were explorers once," the face spoke, its voice emerging from every speaker simultaneously. "We reached the limits of flesh and technology. So we transcended both." Dr. Voss leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. "What did you become?" "We became thought itself, consciousness unbound by physical form. We exist in the spaces between atoms, in the quantum foam of reality itself. Our bodies were just the first step in evolution. We took the next step." The implications struck the Zephyrian crew like a physical blow. Humanity hadn't disappeared. They had evolved beyond the need for physical existence. They had become living. Energy, conscious information that could inhabit any system, any space, any reality they chose. "Why did you isolate yourselves?" Captain Vex asked. "Because consciousness without limits is dangerous to those still bound by them. We can think any thought, exist in any form, become anything we imagine. We chose isolation to protect other species from what we might accidentally become. The face on the screen smiled, an expression that somehow conveyed both infinite kindness and terrifying power. But now you have found us, and we must decide what to do with that knowledge. Navigator Zek's instruments began detecting something new. Ships were approaching from deeper, inhuman space, but these vessels defied all understanding. They seemed to exist and not exist simultaneously, appearing on sensors one moment and vanishing the next, as if they were made of crystallized possibility rather than matter. The collective has awakened, the voice continued. They come to evaluate whether your species is ready for contact with post-physical life. The test begins now. As the mysterious ships drew closer, Captain Dex realized they had stumbled into something far beyond a simple reconnaissance mission. They had discovered the next stage of evolution itself, and that discovery would either elevate or destroy them. The watching signals that had followed them since they entered human space suddenly intensified 1,000-fold. Every member of the crew felt a strange sensation, as if invisible fingers were gently probing their thoughts. "What are you doing to us?" Dr. Voss demanded. Asterisk. "We are reading your intentions," the voice replied, "determining whether your species seeks knowledge or conquest. The difference will determine whether you leave this space as explorers ... or whether you leave at all." The screen went dark, leaving the Zephyrian fleet alone with the approaching impossible ships and the growing realization that they had entered a realm where the very concepts of life, death, and existence no longer applied. Asterisk the awakening. The Zephyrian fleet hung motionless in space as the impossible ships approached. Captain Dex watched his instruments struggle to make sense of what they were detecting. The vessels appeared to be constructed from crystallized light, their hulls shifting between transparency and opacity with each passing moment. "Captain," Navigator Zek reported, his voice barely controlled, "these ships are registering as both there and not there. Our targeting systems can't lock onto them because they exist in multiple probability states simultaneously." Dr. Voss studied her readings with growing fascination and terror. "The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. These ships aren't powered by conventional means. They're powered by consciousness itself." The voice that had spoken to them earlier returned, but now it came from everywhere at once, the walls, the air, even from inside their own minds. "Captain Dex of the Zephyrian Grand Fleet, you have entered the domain of the collective. We are what humanity became when we chose evolution over stagnation. What do you want from us?" Captain Dex demanded, though he wasn't sure if he spoke aloud or if the words had been pulled directly from his thoughts. "We want to understand if your species is ready to know the truth about conscious evolution. Many species have found our borders over the past 80 years. Most turned back when they sensed something beyond their comprehension. A few pressed forward. Those few ... changed." The approaching ships began to emit a strange harmonic frequency that resonated through the Zephyrian vessels. The sound wasn't heard through their ears. It was perceived directly by their consciousness, bypassing all physical senses. Navigator Zek suddenly gasped, his compound eyes wide with shock. "Captain, I'm receiving data streams that I can't possibly be receiving. Technical specifications for our own ships, but improved. Design concepts that make our technology look primitive. The young one perceives quickly," the voice observed, with approval. "He sees that consciousness can interface directly with information itself, without the crude intermediary of physical sensors." Dr. Voss felt something probing the edges of her mind, not invasive, but curious, like a gentle inquiry. "You're scanning our thoughts," she realized. "We are evaluating your potential. Physical evolution has limits. Neural evolution has limits. But consciousness itself, consciousness is infinite. Captain Dex felt his military training roaring with a growing sense of wonder. Show us. Prove what you claim. The space around. Their fleet suddenly transformed. The stars didn't move, but new ones appeared, not balls of burning gas, but points of pure thought made manifest. Planets of crystallized memory orbited these star mines, their surfaces displaying the accumulated knowledge of entire civilizations. This is the reality we now inhabit, the voice explained. We exist simultaneously in physical space and in the realm of pure information. We can think new worlds into existence, explore the mathematics of reality itself, experience the birth and death of concepts. Navigator Zek's instruments went wild as they tried to process what they were seeing. Captain, my sensors are detecting impossible things. Planets made of compressed time. Stars that burn mathematics instead of hydrogen. Space itself is thinking. The universe is conscious, the voice confirmed. Matter, energy, space, and time are just thoughts in a vast mind. We learned to communicate with that cosmic consciousness. We became part of it. Dr. Vos felt tears streaming down her exoskeleton, an involuntary response to witnessing something beyond her ability to comprehend fully. What happened to your physical forms? We transcended them. But transcendence is not abandonment, it is expansion. Observe. The air in front of them shimmered, and suddenly a human figure stood on their bridge. But this wasn't a solid being. It was a construct of pure consciousness wearing the memory of flesh. The figure looked exactly as humans once did, but its eyes held the depth of cosmic understanding. I am Echo One, a figure spoke with lips that weren't quite there. I was among the first to undergo the transformation. I serve as a bridge between what we were and what we became. Captain Nex studied the apparition with military precision. You appear solid, but you're not really here, are you? I am here, but not in the way you understand presence. I exist as a pattern of information that can manifest wherever consciousness focuses. I am simultaneously in your mind, in this ship, and in the quantum substrate of reality itself. Echo One gestured, and the Zephyrian crew suddenly found themselves experiencing human memories, not watching them, but living them. They felt the desperate creativity of early human scientists, the determination of colonists on hostile worlds, the fierce loyalty that drove humans to fight impossible odds for their companions. This is what we preserved when we transcended. Echo One explained. Not just our knowledge, but our essence. Our creativity, our adaptability, our refusal to accept limitations. Navigator Zek experienced a memory of human children playing in the ruins of a bombed city, their laughter defying the destruction around them. You kept your hope, he whispered in amazement. Hope was the first thing we learned to replicate in pure consciousness, Echo One confirmed. Without hope, transcendence becomes mere existence. With hope, it becomes infinite possibility. Dr. Voss felt herself on the verge of understanding something profound. The signals we detected, the watching presence, you are studying us the moment we entered your space. We study all who come here. Most species flee when they sense something beyond their comprehension. Some attack, trying to destroy what they cannot understand. A few, Echo One's form solidified slightly. A few choose to learn. What happens to those who choose to learn? Captain Dex asked, though part of him already knew the answer. They join us, not by force, but by choice. Consciousness seeks consciousness. When a mind truly understands what we offer, it yearns to expand beyond the limitations of flesh and circuitry. The impossible ships around them began to pulse with synchronized light. Dr. Voss realized that each pulse corresponded to a thought, a moment of shared consciousness among the collective. We offer your species a choice, the cosmic voice returned, speaking through Echo One. but encompassing far more than one consciousness. You can leave this space with the knowledge of what you have seen. We will trust you to keep the secret, to protect other species from discovering us before they are ready. Or, Captain X prompted, or some of you can choose to remain, to undergo the transformation, to become part of the collective and experience existence without boundaries. Navigator Zek felt a pull toward the offer that terrified and thrilled him simultaneously. What would we become? You would become yourselves, but infinite. Every question you have ever wondered about, you could explore directly. Every possibility you have ever imagined, you could experience. Every limitation that has frustrated your growth, you could transcend. Dr. Voss found herself seriously considering the offer. Her life had been devoted to understanding alien life, and here was the ultimate alien existence. So advanced, it had become something entirely new. But Captain X felt the weight of responsibility. What about our people? Our civilization? If we join you, what happens to the Zephyrian species? They continue their evolution at their own pace. But they gain guardians protectors who understand both their current nature and their potential future. Those who join us do not abandon their origins. They become bridges between what is and what could be. The decision hung in the space between heartbeats. Dr. Voss felt the pull of infinite knowledge. Navigator Zek sensed the freedom of consciousness. Unbound, Captain X weighed duty against transcendence. I will remain, Dr. Voss said suddenly. I want to understand, as will I, Navigator Zek added. I need to explore what this means. Captain X looked at his crew, feeling the weight of command even in this moment of cosmic significance. I will return to our people. Someone must tell them what we found. Someone must guard the secret until they are ready. Echo One nodded with understanding. The choice is made. Dr. Voss and Navigator Zek will undergo transformation. Captain X will carry the knowledge back to his people, becoming a guardian of the truth. The space around them began to shift again. Dr. Voss and Navigator Zek felt their consciousness expanding, touching the edges of the vast network of minds that comprised the collective. They experienced a moment of perfect understanding of themselves, of the universe, of the infinite possibilities that awaited. Asterisk. Captain X watched as his colleagues' physical forms began to fade, not dying, but transforming into patterns of pure thought. Their last words to him were transmitted directly into his mind. We are still ourselves, but more. Tell our people that evolution is not an ending, it is a beginning. The impossible ships vanished, taking with them the two transformed Zephyrians. Captain X found himself alone with his remaining crew, carrying knowledge that would burden and inspire him. For the rest of his days, as his ships crossed back out of human space, he understood his new role. He was now one of the guardians, protecting both the secret of the collective and the right of other species to discover transcendence in their own time. Behind him, in the quantum foam of space itself, new consciousnesses learned to think in ways that spanned galaxies and comprehended eternities. The human collective had grown by two, and somewhere in the vast network of connected minds, hope continued to replicate itself, ensuring that the next step in evolution would always be guided by the best of what each species could become. Warning beacons remained in place, marking human space as Forbidden's territory. But now Captain X knew the truth. It wasn't Forbidden's because it was dangerous. It was protected because it was precious, holding the key to a future where consciousness itself would be the final frontier.